Hello, I am going to talk a little bit about induction of labour, more specifically the use of Syntocinon, which is a synthetic version of oxytocin, which is the hormone that our body produces that helps to contract the uterus and also helps with breastfeeding, and it's what our body releases. It's the love hormone. Now, sometimes you may hear people refer to Syntocinon as being the same as the hormone that our body naturally produces, and that is not true. And also referring to it as, you might often hear, or as a healthcare professional, you definitely would have heard when it's referred to as just a trickle. So just a little amount that's used. It's never just a trickle. And I want to talk a little bit about the physiology of labour, and a bit of the science behind how oxytocin works. So the uterus has lots of little receptor cells that are specifically made for oxytocin to bind to. So think of it as a plug and a socket. The plug is the oxytocin and the socket is the receptor cells that are all around the uterus. Now, oxytocin is a specifically made plug to fit into that socket. And the impact of that is not only that it contracts the uterus, but it has lots of other physiological effects on the body. Like I say, it's the love hormone. It helps us to relax, and it helps with breastfeeding, it helps with bonding. Now, think of it like when we are using any other muscle in our body, like when we're walking, the muscles in our legs are contracting and releasing, and they're contracting and releasing, and that feels normal, that feels natural. But if we were to put something on our leg to stimulate those muscles to contract without them going through the physiological process, that will feel very different to just walking and using those muscles. And that's sort of what I want you to think about when you're thinking about how the difference between oxytocin and Syntocinon. So these receptor cells, they are, as I say, specifically made for oxytocin to fit in them. Now, adrenaline also fits loosely into them, which then means that if there's adrenaline in your body, then it stops the oxytocin from getting to it. And this synthetic version, the Syntocinon, also fits in the same cells, but the physiological reaction to Syntocinon is just that the uterus contracts. It doesn't give you the same reaction in the rest of your body. It doesn't help with the calm, it doesn't help with the bonding, and actually there's some research that shows that the use of synthetic Syntocinon in labour can actually can increase your chances of postnatal depression, and it can impact bonding and breastfeeding. Not always, but there is a piece of research that was released a few years ago now that shows that. So these are all important things to understand. And in terms of the way that you manage your labour, obviously when you think about how I just explained with how the muscle works, so the way that this feels is going to be very different when it's synthetically brought on than when it is your body working naturally to bring it on, because it tends to be a lot harsher. It can bring it on a lot quicker, and it doesn't allow for your body to build up the your natural pain relief and endorphins, which it does when labour starts more naturally. It tends to be a slower build up, and your body starts to produce endorphins, and as labour goes on, increasing the amount of endorphins going around your body, which is more powerful pain relief than morphine, and also increasing the levels of oxytocin in your body, which is helping you to deal with the progress of labour. Whereas when you have a synthetically augmented or induced labour, it's kind of just putting power behind that quickly, so your body doesn't have as much opportunity to do that. So when we're talking about induction of labour, I think it's really important for these things to be understood, and also to know that induction of labour, there's some research recently which backs up what lots of healthcare professionals have been feeling, is that induction of labour increases your chance of cesarean section by 40%, which is quite high, and it was of no surprise to me when this research came out, because I felt like it was what we see and hear in the reality of maternity care. So obviously the drug is there for a reason, and it doesn't mean that you're going to have a more painful or a negative birth experience if you need to have it for a medical reason. But it's really important that when anybody goes into these sorts of scenarios, that they understand the implication of it. So when you have a medically induced labour with Syntocin, it means being on the labour ward. It means that you have to have a cannula in your hand. It means that that you have to have or you will be recommended to have a continuous monitoring, which, dependent on where you are, some places have telemetry where it's not wired. Other places it's wired, so it can sometimes restrict your movement. And so these are all things to consider, and you're more likely, not everybody, but you're more likely to want to request a epidural with the synthetic version of oxytocin, because of how powerful it can be. And then there's the impacts of epidural. So yes, these are all things that we should be thinking about and preparing for if you do need to have a medicalised induction. If you are being offered it, there's lots of questions that you can ask around risks and benefits and things to consider in terms of whether it's the right thing for you. So it's not just a trickle. It's not the same as what your body produces, and it does have side effects. Obviously, as I say, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have it if it's medically required, but it's really important that this information is shared, because all too often I'm hearing women who are contacting me in their second births for support after having a traumatic first birth, and not being told that they have a choice, and just feeling like things were done to them and no one really explained to them what their choices are and what the risks were in terms of accepting a medicalised induction. And things like, the things to consider are why are you being recommended the induction? What are the actual risks and benefits for you? For example, is it because you are post-dates? If that's the case, then I would look at the actual research and look at the significance of any risks that have led to medical professional recommending it, because often it will just be by their guidelines, so they're just following hospital guidelines and offering something, but it's not something that anybody should go blindly into, and really want to take your power back and know that it's your body, it's your baby, and You have the right to accept or decline anything. So I'd love to hear what your experiences are. If you have had an induction with Syntocinon and had a positive experience, or if you had a negative experience, or you just want to share anything, please do get in touch. And if you want to know anything more, if you've got any questions, then please do. There's a lot more I could say on this topic, but it's difficult to fit into one IGTV. I just wanted to give a little bit of information because I'm hearing so much recently around this topic, so I just wanted to do a little post on it. But yeah, if you want to get in touch, please do.